Okay, so excited to show you guys this awesome service that Jacob is here with Adapt API to tell us all about how he is helping agents access policy data and information with carriers that cannot integrate or do not integrate through AMS systems and have some limitations. So they are now able to pull information for over 35 different companies, but that list is growing, which is so exciting. And we know these days with, making it so difficult to find really good staff, and we're all trying to be more efficient and effective and have better technology in place. Adapt API is really solving a huge gap in the industry right now for agents and making it so much easier for them to operate all of their carriers. So I'm really excited to have this demo. Jacob, thank you so much for agreeing to do this recording with us today. And I'm going to kind of hand it over to you. Can you give us a little background on the company, how you guys got started, and then we'll just dive into that demo.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Mariah, for having me here today. It's funny, the way we got started is I actually came more from the technology industry, but I had a couple friends who'd worked in insurance and were always kind of harping on me to come and just spend some time in this space because they were like, there's so many things that we just need done better, right? That we could use some help with, and how to build these things. And I finally took them up on it, and I ended up spending a lot of time just sitting in agencies, kind of like watching them do their day-to-day, trying to understand, where do things work well and where might there be opportunities to do something that's maybe a little bit more efficient. And when I was spending that time, I kind of started to see this pattern, right? And that pattern was namely people, especially on the servicing side of the business, having to go out to carrier websites because a bunch of different things weren't automatically coming through into the management system. And they'd be logging into, 10, 15 different websites every single day just to get the latest information. And it was all, manually like log in, download a report, copy paste things out and to try and get like a CRM or a management system. There's copy pasting errors happening. And at the end of the day, what it means is it's a big waste of time, but also a lot of these mistakes end up, right? Because if you're unable to get out in front of them that, hey, you missed a payment, you might want to go and pay your bill, then they might end up actually canceling. And especially in today's market, a cancellation can be a lot harder to recover from. And so that really seemed like something that we could help solve for.
Yeah, I mean, in some situations now, in the market, you get a cancellation, you might not be able to get another insurance policy. It can be a little iffy depending on where you are. So important to make sure we're on top of our customer service and taking care of our clients. And unfortunately, all of our customers don't open all their emails and, read all their mail from the insurance company. So we have to have an active role in that customer service. So you started working with some friends and sitting in agencies, when did Adapt API kind of start? How did that happen?
So we first got started about 2 years ago, and that was, really just the concept for the business. So I'd spent some time in a couple of agencies, came up with this concept and kind of put the concept in front of them and said, hey, if we could, instead of having a person go and get all this information for you, what if that just happened automatically and it showed up in your system every day? And of course, they were like, well, that would be amazing, right? And so that was really the starting point for Adapt. So we worked with a couple of those agencies to kind of build out the initial product and kind of use them as design partners to be able to make sure we were getting the right information, putting it in a usable format, all those things before we'd want to go and kind of bring it to other agents. And so we spent about a year just doing that back and forth, building out the initial system, getting feedback, getting it ready for prime time. And then about a year ago was when we really started going out to market, talking to agents, kind of putting this in front of them as a finished product so they could actually see how it can work and be able to bring it into their agency. And since then, a year ago, I think we had 8 companies and now we have 35. So we really are growing it quickly and that number's growing all the time. And so it's been really fun to kind of watch that grow and see us be able to take over more and more of that repetitive work so the agents can spend time on just higher value things.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. I'm excited to see it live.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into it. I'll share my screen. So I thought what would be helpful to walk through is kind of what you see as an agent when you use Adapt. So let me go ahead and share this over. And again, the problem that we're just trying to solve is rather than having a person log into 15 different websites every day, we do it for you, all automated, so it's done consistently, standardized every time, and whether somebody's taking vacation or a sick day or whatever, it still gets done, right? Which we saw happening a lot of times. Someone going on 1 week vacation and then everything just halts until they come back and have to catch up. And so on the agent side, what you see, it's pretty simple. We try and keep things as simple as possible because the last thing you need is another website to spend a bunch of time in and learn the workflows of. And so really all you're going to do in our portal is just the setup process, which you can see here we have 1 carrier linked, and adding a carrier into Adapt is as simple as clicking this add button, picking your carrier from the list, putting in the credentials, and then you go ahead and click OK here, and it actually goes live and checks to make sure that the credentials work. So once we've actually saved it, we know this is a valid login and we're ready to get started. After that, it's kind of all magic behind the scenes. So all those daily tasks of opening the website, logging in, finding the right information, that all happens completely automated. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to click play on it or watch it happen. All you have to think about is what you get out the other side. And so there's a few different ways that we get this information over to agents. The first and simplest one is that we send you a report every single morning of all the different activity that we're pulling from the different companies, right? So you can see here, this is an example of one of those reports. This is the billing notices section. And so there are a bunch of different companies here, the policy numbers, the notice date, all of these are fields that we've standardized from the carrier website into a single standard format. And something else that we standardized is if you look at the notice type here, you log into a different carrier website and they all have different names for everything, right? We've actually done that standardization for you. So with us, it's not going to be an intent to cancel or cancellation notice. It's always going to be pending cancellation. And that means that whether a person is running through this report manually or you're plugging it into something downstream for automation, it's very easy to define rules for how each type of thing should be handled.
This alone is just so much time to save. Like if you think about, you have an employee who you say, okay, you're doing billing, you're handling claims, that a lot of agents will divvy those roles out in their agencies. And to just say you have one report to check in the morning, even if you don't go further than this, you just have one report to check. I can't even tell you how much time that will save. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just having it in one place, right? And in one format. So you don't have to remember like, hey, what does this company call this versus what does this company call this?
I feel like what you should do when you do marketing is you should just call agencies and ask to talk to their customer service rep and be like, hey, if I could do this for you, because then they would sell it to the agent for you because they would be so excited to have one report for all the carriers.
Yeah, well, it's funny because and sometimes we talk to agencies and often there's a little bit of a separation between the sales side and the service side of the organization. And so if you talk to the sales side, sometimes they're like, oh, but like, I don't know if it's that much work. And then the second you talk to anyone who's on customer service, they're like, this is 2 hours of my day, right?
Yes.
And so the idea you can get it done right every time, I think is a huge selling point.
Well, and 2 hours of your day pulling information when what we want you to do, like as an agency owner, I want you to spend your 2 hours talking to our customers. I want you looking for coverage gaps and looking for discounts and selling umbrellas and offering life insurance and, doing customer service to sales. That's what we want you to do. That's better for retention. It's better for our sales environment. 2 hours every day. Oh my gosh. Like, it would drive me crazy if they were pulling reports for 2 hours every day.
Right. And even for them, their career is not getting improved at all by pulling reports for 2 hours, right?
No, it's not a skill.
Exactly. It's not a skill. It's not something that helps them develop along the trajectory that they want. So really nobody wins from spending the time doing this. And so it's great when you can just, click a button basically and have it done.
Yeah.
And we're really doing this. So this report, and this is something we actually see that often the agency owner really likes because this gives you a high level overview. So this is showing you your kind of like last 7 days across your book of business. So we just walked through billing notices. You can see we're doing policy notices. So things like renewals, non-renewals, endorsements, audits, any kind of policy transaction we're pulling in here. And then lastly, we're doing the same thing for claims. So again, these are claims are open, claims are closed. Some of the companies will actually post payments to the portal. So we'll grab those for you as well. And so it's a very easy way to keep tabs on all the different claim activity across the book of business in one place.
That's awesome.
And then something we've started adding on here is these more, I would say, like custom views for very specific use cases. So this last report here, last tab of the report, is all about pending cancels. And all this is going to show you is all your pending cancels that have not yet been either canceled or paid. And so it's a very easy way to have a quick kind of gut check, safety check, to make sure that you don't have things that are progressing through that close to that due date and not actually being handled. So even if you have automations in place, even if you have a process in place, it still gives you that last, kind of like sanity check. You don't end up having some of these things cross over into cancellation.
Because how many times do you call a company and they're missing a document, so you submit the document and you've got 2 days before cancellation and you send the document, but for some reason on the company side, someone doesn't update the document or update the outstanding requirement, and then it just cancels anyways. So we're assuming it's done, it's taken care of, but it still hits the cancellation. I know in my agency, we have another follow-up set to make sure they've actually done their job on their end. This is a really great extra piece where you can just be notified that, we might have submitted it, but it still hit over there, so it needs more attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly those types of situations, you can, if need be, even pick up the phone and talk to the company so you can make sure that, because sometimes it's also just a processing thing on their side. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for them to actually get the information submitted into their systems. But of course, you're going to want to check that to make sure you're not having a customer you cancel that unnecessarily.
Yeah, definitely. This is cool. It says beta at the bottom. So is this still in testing or is it rolled out?
This is rolled out.
Okay.
I just haven't deleted this is like
it's
an
fine.
old version of the report. I haven't deleted the beta. But yeah, we've had this section of the report now for probably close to a year. So this is well past beta.
I have a question for you. I don't know the answer, but with these carrier reports, these are enforced policies. Is there any kind of data that shows like a new policy is enforced with that carrier for the agency? That something was bound?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pulling in those transactions as well. So yeah, when a new policy is bound, that would show up in your policy notices section of the report.
Okay. So they can, so if you've submitted bind, for example, especially commercial, you've submitted all the bind requirements, it would show up in your report that it's bound, saving you the call to the underwriter to confirm bind. If you didn't receive an email, you could actually just see it in this report.
Yeah, we'll usually get it once it's issued. So as long as it's been, as long as it's been issued from the company, then we'll pull that in and you can see it in our in our report. Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you. So that's kind of the notifications, the high-level report that you're going to get every day, showing up in your agency with all the latest information. We're also actually pulling documents, and so we see more of a demand for this on the commercial side. But often commercial carriers don't download documents, and you want to have that paper in your system. And so what we've actually done is added that onto our system. So we're actually pulling the documents from the website directly. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, we'll create a shared folder. So in this case, Acme Insurance Agency, and each day we're uploading all the documents for that day into a folder.
Wow.
So you can see we have a couple companies. Also, what we do with those documents is similar to what we do with the report. We actually standardize the naming convention. So when you download a document from a carrier website, half the time it's just called endorsement, or maybe it's just the policy number, or maybe it's just something totally garbled. That's not very useful, and then a person is opening it, renaming it manually, which is just a huge waste of time. And so what you can see here is we've actually come up with a standard naming convention that has the customer name, the policy number, the line of business, and the transaction right in the file name. So you never even really need to open it to figure out what's going on. You know exactly what it is, and you can process it from there.
Well, yeah, and something like Google Drive, they're searchable, so you can even just type in the customer's name, and it's going to pull up all of the documents that are in the system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have some agents who have done that. They've migrated to using Google Drive. We also integrate, we can do SharePoint, basically any file storage system. And for that exact reason, because the search is so good, that by keeping it in here, it makes it actually very easy to find, especially once you have that consistent file name that is going to be there for all of them.
Yeah. So you said any document storage, so OneDrive, Dropbox, all that kind of stuff, SharePoint. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you just get to pick.
You get to pick. We have agents using all of the ones you just mentioned. So it's pretty flexible in that regard. And then something that we've also started to do more recently is actually connect all the way into management systems. So for example, with Hawksoft, all this information I just showed you, the notifications we're pulling, the documents we're pulling, we can actually just directly insert those into Hawksoft as log notes, attachments, and we can actually create suspensions too.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so basically the entire thing works end to end, and it just shows up in your management system as if it was always meant to be that way.
So this is taking companies that wouldn't otherwise go into Hawksoft and do all of this for you. You're going around the back end and putting it in, and it looks the same. So from the staff side, it looks like these carriers just all download into Hawksoft.
Yes.
Are there any other management systems that you're able to do that with right now?
Yeah, so we have documents downloading into NowCerts, and then we're close to launching a couple other ones, or we're in discussions or close to launching a couple other ones. So I'll have more to share on that soon. But we're moving along with a bunch of management systems right now.
Well, if you're not already talking to Vertafore, I'm going to get you talking to Vertafore because we need to get to those into them too.
Yeah, we're pretty far along with that. So
Perfect.
I would expect us to have something in the very near future. Yeah, we're working with them on a couple of the management systems actually that they have.
This is so cool too from the training standpoint, because even if if you don't want to have the report every day, if this goes into the management system and you have all these carriers and you're like, dang it, I wish they, integrated into my management system. Staff doesn't even really have to know about this. It's all going to work on the back end, and they're just going to now really truly be able to just use, your CRM and your management system, instead of having to train them on where to go look for all of these different systems and all these different reports and the documents. Because every single website is different. I mean, I'm a farmer's agent, but we still have, Foremost and Bristol West, and we have Haggerty, and we use different flood programs. And, even just us, where we're supposed to have one company that's easy, we're still pulling reports from all different places within our systems. And that takes so much time, but also just the matter of training new staff, because there's always turnover. And this will streamline that so much. They don't have to worry about all those different logins. So I don't know. I just love this. I get excited about it because I hate inefficiency. It drives me crazy. And I hate repetitive tasks. And this is the coolest solution. So keep going.
Awesome. Yeah, no. And yeah, I think the other thing is it also helps on the retention side, right? Because if someone's spending 2 hours a day doing copy paste work, and then someone else comes in and says, hey, we have another job for you where you don't have to do copy paste work. That's a pretty big drop, right? I think that's one of the things that is a challenge in a lot of the time, is that even when you have great people, great people want to be doing like challenging, exciting work. And if you make them spend a quarter of their time doing this repetitive, mundane work, then they're more likely to go looking for other things, right? And so it's actually, I think in some cases, kind of like virtuous cycle where the more of this work you can offload, the more you can retain the best people and kind of have them working on the most important problems.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I have an employee in my agency now who she worked for Geico and then she worked for Allstate, and she came into my agency and she's like, I can't believe the stuff you guys have available, like the systems, right? She was so excited about that. It made her job so much easier. Things like, we have all this different automation in place, obviously, and she absolutely loved it. And coming from these other companies where she didn't have it, she has a lot more job enjoyment. There was I think it was last year, maybe the year before, Zapier did kind of a state of business automation report, and they had surveyed a bunch of employees in different companies, and job satisfaction was really related to the amount of repetitive tasks, but also the amount of like clarity in training and like simplicity in the job, right? When actually doing the day to day. So if it's really complex and just too confusing, people aren't going to want to stay. They're not going to enjoy that type of work environment. So I agree. This is great for training, great for retention, and just for efficiency. If you can give anyone, even if you can give an employee in your agency a half an hour back, right? If you have a small agency, maybe you only have a few of these companies that don't download, and you're thinking, maybe it doesn't take 2 hours. Maybe I don't need this. If you can give them back 30 minutes, what could they do with that 30 minutes that they're not doing today? Maybe talk to more people about life insurance, or if you sell, cross-sell Medicare, whatever it is that you want them to spend more time on. This is just not a good use of people's time, clicking and copying and pasting.
Right, absolutely. And that's something that we think a lot about too, is because people will often think about this in comparison to the cost of an hour of, some of the agency's time. But I think the real issue there is the opportunity cost, right? It's what could they be doing otherwise, which is probably not just worth what you're paying them. It's probably worth a lot more, right? Because otherwise you probably wouldn't pay them what you pay them, right? And so I think that's the thing that we see, is that you actually unlock a lot more value by being able to reallocate to some of these other things that just drive value for the agency.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Zapier and Agency Zoom. I know when we first hopped on a call, we briefly talked about this, but this is one of the things that you were really excited about. So we actually have a Zapier app that's built. So all those things you saw in that report are also available through Zapier triggers. And then can become...
Sorry, really quick. Just is your Zapier app an invite only, or is it out on the network?
It's invite only. Yeah. So
okay.
right now it's invite only, but we give it to any of our customers who ask for it. So we're not limiting that in any way. And basically any notification. Yeah,
so for viewers, because Zapier, you can see a list of all the software that they have available to connect. There's like 5,800 different kinds, but there are some that are invite only, just like theirs. So what that means is you have to be a customer, they have to send you the link, and then you can add it to your Zapier account and it'll show up. Some people will go look at a software and go search Zapier and then look for, oh, are they on Zapier? I always mix those up, Zapier. I don't know which one's right.
I don't know either.
It's interchangeable to me now, but anyways, but they'll think, oh, they're not on there, so they must not have it. So if you're ever trying to figure that out of any software, contact the company, because a lot of times it's just invite and it's not public information. So again, you guys can have it. This is really cool. I'm excited for you to keep going through this, but glad you have Zapier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a great way to kind of like open up the system to a lot of other downstream products, right? Because we have some agencies using this with Agency Zoom, but we have others using it with a whole variety of different systems. HubSpot, I think we have one using it with Monday.com. Like there's so many different other things that you might want to plug this into, and we can't build integrations into everything, right? And so the Zapier app has been a really big way for us to open up access to anything else that you want to connect things into. I mean, we have people doing things plugging into Google Sheets and then doing other things from there. There's some pretty complex things that a couple agents
you
have
could
set
send
up.
a Slack message. I mean, you could have it pull it, and then you could say, based on premium, if it's a cancellation, send a Slack message. This is super urgent. There's so many ways you can filter that data and notify your team if you want to put extra special attention on certain things. So excited this is here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we even have one agent who was doing that. They did this for claims. So anytime a claim happens, they send a Slack message. So they make sure that whoever's responsible for that account is actually getting on top of it and reaching out. So you're right, that's another great example of something that can be done with it. But I think it's useful just to go through, this is a sample kind of Zap, I guess, where so this would be to do late pays. So we're pulling in all our billing notices, and we're able to then to use that information to find a lead in Agency Zoom. And then lastly, we update that lead. So we can actually set the pipeline, set the stage, and actually kick off. We have a bunch of agents doing this where they have a late pay pipeline. And so this pushes that customer into the late pay pipeline, and they start getting whether texts, emails, whatever the right workflow is for your agency. And this whole thing happens without a person ever looking at it. So nobody has to pull it, nobody has to enter it into Agency Zoom. The entire late pay process is completely automated.
I'm so jealous. We have a late pay pipeline too, but because I'm farmers, we have to manual pull those alerts and put them in. But this is so great, because when I went to my staff, when we first started really automating customer service stuff, which of course you don't want to automate away your client experience. That's not the point. But when we started automating, I asked my team, I was like, what do you wish you could, not do every day? What do you hate doing? But it's a necessary evil kind of thing. And it was late pays. And obviously the customer is notified from the company, but again, they just don't really pay a lot of attention. And we want to reduce any kind of future customer service. Being proactive is much better than being reactive. So we always contact people, but the majority of the time we're calling, leaving a voicemail, and then sending a text anyways, because they don't always answer the phone during the day. So just getting rid of that phone call in the beginning and sending a couple text messages and emails first to attempt contact, and then we call if it's a couple days later after the initial alert. But being able to do that, they were so excited. That was the first automation we built on the customer service side, and our customers, we have great feedback from it. It had how much they were late on their due date, how much when the payment date was, and they could arrange payment plans with us if they needed to. And it freed up my team to do other things. We call every single renewal customer, and most agents are like, how do you have time for that? But it's because we automate all of these extra things. We still provide really high level customer service, but it's through automation. The fact that you can pull these alerts without having to go on the system, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, this was a pretty fun one. I think this is a kind of for a lot of agencies who work with, this is a mind-blowing moment. They're like, because exactly like you said, no one likes doing late pay calling, no one likes doing late pay texting. It's a necessary evil, but that's one of the first things that every service team is like, if I could give this away, I wouldn't heartbeat. And so we've seen a ton of excitement around when they actually see it working, where they're like, okay, I looked over the last week, all my late pays got texted, I didn't do anything. This is amazing. And so it's been exciting to see that in the wild.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love that the lookup, it would work in obviously any CRM that you guys are using that is on Zapier. So keep that in mind. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Agency Zoom. I think that's what you should use. But if you have one now and you're thinking, gosh, it doesn't work with my CRM, as long as they're on Zapier, you can do something similar like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of them now have started to do it because it's become it's almost table stakes at this point, right? Because it makes it so much easier to do these types of connections that if you're not offering it, someone else is going to offer it, and it's going to be hard to kind of retain those customers.
Well, yeah, 4 years ago when I started using agency Zoom and they got their Zap on Zapier, and on the Zapier website, it said we have 2,000 softwares we can connect. And now 4 years later, there's 5,800. So companies are obviously seeing the value in this. And we all know that no one company is going to do everything that we need when it comes to software. We're going to have to piece them together, but being able to connect through Zapier is so helpful to make those systems work really seamlessly. So yeah, so cool. So excited. I'm thinking of all these other like ideas I have that you could connect here, but I'm not going to, we'll digress on that.
Sure. Yeah, we can put a bit in that. But that's the kind of like high level overview of the product. I think it should give agents a pretty good idea of how this works, what the kind of like different versions of using this, of working with Adapt look like today. And so maybe now, and I know you want to talk a little bit, I think it'd be helpful to give people a sense of what pricing looks like.
Yeah, let's talk about pricing.
Yeah, and so the way we think about pricing is pretty straightforward. We price on a per usage basis, right? So every notification we pull from the carrier, there's a price for every document we pull, and we very intentionally set that price so it's lower than the cost of having a person do it, right? And what that means is that whether you're a smaller agency or a massive agency, you're always going to come out ahead using Adapt. And to put that in perspective, ballpark what an agency, let's say like $1.5 million in revenue is doing, they're probably spending $200 to $250 a month and saving, well over an hour of time per day of work. And then of course, if you're a little bit smaller, you're going to spend a little bit less. If you're bigger, you'll spend a little bit more. But again, always with that pricing in mind, where it's meant to be less than the cost of having a person do it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. And then, like I said, just the amount of, think about even just from the compliance standpoint, right? Where a lot of times we're supposed to have these documents available to us, and the fact that we have them pulled in the system, like without fail, right? There's no, oh, I forgot to pull it. I mean, I know one of the carriers we work with, when we write a new policy, the application is available for like 48 hours and then it's gone. And we have to manually type out the application. If we didn't print it off at that time or pull it and save it, we'd have to actually fill in that document by hand, like type it in. And that is even so much more work, right? And we have a process to pull it, but it's manual. And if that employee is out, then they do have to go back. We have to have somebody else go in and pull it while they're gone. And we've had issues where, we tell that person, okay, you're covering, so you're going to have to pull these reports, but it's not part of their daily flow. And then we go back and we're looking for an application and, oh, you were covering, oh, I forgot to pull it that day, and okay, so now we have so much more work to manually fill out this document because now it's not available. And that's what's foremost, like their documents aren't always there. Something like this, again, saving the manual work, someone's out, you don't have to worry about training someone else to cover, but you also don't have to worry about going back and being like, it's missing, it's gone. So not even just from the cost per month, but thinking about E&O, thinking about, ongoing compliance. Like we all know, as your agencies get bigger, customer service issues just stack up if you don't have good systems in place. So it doesn't really matter how big or small you are. If you've got lots of companies and they aren't integrated, the ones you work with don't integrate into your AMS. In my mind, this is just a must because there's so many pitfalls of doing it manually, which is how we've all had to do it up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, right, it's when that's the only option, it makes sense to do that. But we're trying to provide, an alternative, which makes it a little bit more streamlined.
Do you have a list of the companies? Is that something you might have, or maybe we could post it with the call later of the 35 that you have? Yeah,
I do have a list. It does change pretty quickly as we grow it, but maybe there's a way we can like link something under the video or something like that, so that people can get an updated list as it changes over time.
So how should people reach out to you if they want to pursue this service? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is you can just shoot me an email directly. And my email is Jacob, Jacob, @adaptinsurance.com. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. But I can also share a link over maybe that we can put under the video if somebody just wants to even just book some time on my calendar, and I'm happy to like hop on, talk more about Adapt, answer any questions. And that works as well.
Perfect. Yeah, we can get that in there for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all the information. I'm really excited about this. We did the first demo. I had kind of a hard time wrapping my head around like what you guys did. But I loved the summary. I think it made it super clear. And again, if you guys just, anyone who's watching, if you have carriers who don't integrate, reach out to Jacob, get that list, see if your carriers are on there. If they're not, let them know what carriers you want, because they're constantly adding them. And working on that list for agents. Thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated it. And we'll have this video up real soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mariah.
Thanks.